Tallaght, last night the South African Parliament passed a motion by a large majority to cut all diplomatic ties with Israel and to expel the Israeli ambassador from South Africa. The Dáil should have done that last week, and we have another chance to do it this evening, and we should take that chance. But instead of doing that last week, what did the government do? They mobilised, they whipped their TDs to vote it down, but not just that. What did the Taoiseach do? The Minister for Foreign Affairs, the leader of Fianna Fáil. Well, after hosting the Israeli ambassador at the Fianna Fáil Ardèche, the Taoiseach went on a trip to Israel, supposedly representing the people of this country. The Taoiseach participated in a propaganda tour organised by the Israeli state designed to justify the genocide being inflicted on the people of Gaza. And did the Taoiseach, when he was in the region, visit Gaza, where more than 13,000 people have been killed, almost 6,000 children have been killed, more than 1 in 200 residents have been killed? No, we didn't. I'm interested in hearing him explain why he didn't visit Gaza. There's one of two reasons. One is that he did not attempt to visit, that he thought it was appropriate to visit Israel to see the impact of Hamas rockets, to point at a ceiling, but not appropriate to go and witness the destruction of hospitals, of apartment blocks, of refugee camp in Gaza. Or the other is that he did attempt to visit and that Israel said no, but that he had nothing to say publicly about that. So I'm very interested in finding out which it is. But Taoiseach, your trip to Israel was a disgrace. It was absolutely shameful to be participating in such a propaganda tour while the assault on Gaza is ongoing. Look at the tweets that were put out by the Taoiseach. Compare and contrast. Meeting with the Palestinian Authority, quote, "I expressed my sympathy to the Palestinian people over civilian deaths in Gaza." No mention of who caused those civilian deaths, who's responsible for them. Whereas when meeting with people in Israel, quote, "unreservedly condemned the brutal attack by Hamas, no difficulty in identifying who was responsible." Maybe that was just a slip in a tweet, a couple of tweets that were sent out. But it's not. Because there's an amendment, a counter-motion in the Taoiseach's own name, which is very clear in terms of condemning the barbaric attack by Hamas. But when it comes to all the victims in Gaza, what does it have to say? It deeply deplores the catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza, including the death of over 11,000 people, etc., following Israel's military actions in Gaza. Very passive language. Later on, it also condemns the killing of children and civilians. Full stop. No mention of who was responsible. How is it, Taoiseach, that Palestinians just seem to get killed with nobody being responsible, nobody being blamed, nobody being condemned? And the government's response to all of this, our motion, will be to say diplomacy is key. We cannot possibly impose sanctions and seek to isolate apartheid Israel. But that, Taoiseach, is not the truth. It's not the real reason. And you know that because you can compare the response to Israel's assault on Gaza with the response by the Irish government to Russia's criminal imperialist invasion of Ukraine. Was the Russian ambassador Filatov present at the Fianna Fáil Ardèche, Taoiseach? Was he invited? Did you go on a propaganda tour to Russia? No. The Irish state expelled Russian diplomats and imposed extensive sanctions on Russia. So what's the difference? Is it the number of casualties? No, it's clearly not. What's the difference? The difference is clear. It's pretty obvious. It's the attitude of the United States. The US supports Israel. It gives billions of dollars, $3 or $4 billion a year in military aid. They have greenlit the current genocide. They've increased the amount they're giving, an extra $14.5 billion. Israel is a crucial ally of the US in the Middle East. Joe Biden famously saying that if Israel didn't exist, it would have to be invented. So the US supports Israel, whereas it opposes Russia, seeing Russia as a rival imperialism and seeing the criminal invasion by Putin of Ukraine as an opportunity to extend its own sphere of influence. And the Taoiseach, his party, Fine Gael and the entire political establishment see Ireland in the US camp. They want us to be more and more in that camp. They would like for us eventually to be in NATO, but you know you have to move slowly. So in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, you've not only imposed sanctions, you've even participated in military training exercises for Ukrainian troops. In response to Israel's genocide in Gaza, what have you done? Words, words, more words. Words attempting to respond to the attitudes of the vast majority of people in this country. Words responding to those who are on the streets. Words to try to make sure you don't pay a political price for the position that you're taking. But in terms of actions, absolutely nothing. Look at your counter-motion. Not a single action. Why? Because you do not want to offend the US administration. And Shannon Airport is at the heart of this relationship, both symbolically and materially. Is Shannon Airport being used to transport weapons from the US to Israel? The truth is, I don't know. The truth is that the Taoiseach and the government doesn't know either, because they refuse to do inspections. We do know that there has very likely been troops going through Shannon Airport to the region to assist in the US agenda of backing up Israel's genocide on Gaza. We know that there's been a significant 50% increase in munitions allowances, indicating an increase in troops going. And we know that the US is the biggest supporter of the genocide being inflicted on the people of Gaza. It is absolutely wrong. It is scandalous that they continue to be allowed to use Shannon Airport. Shannon Airport must be shut down for the US military. The final point I want to make is it's very clear. If you listened to the Taoiseach yesterday, he said the reason they're not supporting this motion, we cannot support the motion, is because we don't include a condemnation of Hamas. That isn't true. We know it's not true because that's not all you do in your own counter motion. We know it's not true because last week you voted against motions which did condemn Hamas. Well, why don't we include it? Is it because we support the killing of civilians? Of course not. Is it because we support the taking of hostages, civilian hostages? Of course not. Is it because we politically support Hamas? Of course not. Why? It's because we do not accept the narrative that history began on the 7th of October, that all the killings in this year by Israel before then didn't matter, that the 17 years of blockade of Gaza didn't matter, that the 75 years of dispossession, of ethnic cleansing, of apartheid, that none of that matters, none of that is relevant. We do not accept that. And this moment must be used not only to push for a permanent ceasefire, but to say this is the moment to build a movement that is actually capable of assisting in winning liberation for the people of Palestine.